With Bobby Lashley turning heel on Kevin Owens, this has left many people wondering, have we just seen the rare and wonderful sight known as the double turn? Turning two wrestlers simultaneously is one of booking's greatest feats. But what exactly makes the double turn so amazing? More importantly, why is it so rare? And why is it so hard to do right? Well, that's the subject of this episode. Because today, Dave knows the double turn. A double turn happens when a good guy wrestler turns bad and a bad guy wrestler turns good at the same time. And that's one of the first things that I think is required for a true double turn to take place. The whole being at the same time part. I want the turn to be the result of the exact same action. I want the act that turns one wrestler to turn the other. Like with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart. At WrestleMania 13, after Bret had already won the match, he continued to assault Austin, who was lying in the ring, busted open and barely moving. This act of aggression was on someone who was completely defenseless and was a very dastardly deed, and it made Austin the victim, who then earned the audience's respect and sympathy. Now that is a lot to unpack for just one simple gesture. So how does all this emotional baggage and motivation turn the tide of the crowd for two warring parties? Well, it has a lot to do with all the key components that are placed in front of the audience before the turn itself actually happens. Because as is the case with Austin and Bret, their story goes back even further than their WrestleMania 13 match. At this time, the tide of the WWE audience was shifting. The little Hulkamaniacs that made up much of the 80s boom were growing up, and as adolescence hit, their tastes were changing too. Bret Hart, who had always been seen as a pure babyface, was in need of a change, as the fans started to gravitate towards more edgier characters like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And with them already having a feud locked into place, WrestleMania became the perfect time for them to switch roles in the company. After that, Austin began his journey to superstardom and would become the face of the company by the following year. Bret, on the other hand, would adopt an anti-American gimmick and form a new Hart Foundation stable, which Austin continued to feud with, still keeping his heat with Hart alive. But that is one factor that doesn't always get brought up. The feud. Just think about it. You never see a good double turn happen between two random non-feuding wrestlers, because since emotion is the key to getting the audience invested, and it also serves as a good way to extend a rivalry, then having previously feuding parties is the right way to go in order to make a double turn truly work. But how about we look at another classic example? A double turn, if you will. Survivor Series 1988. In a giant 10-on-10 Survivor Series elimination match featuring 5 tag teams against another 5 tag teams. The heel tag team of Demolition, who had been dominating the tag division and was currently in a rivalry with the babyface Powers of Pain. During the match, Fuji would sabotage his own client Smash by lowering the rope, causing him to fall out of the ring, which led to him getting counted out, thus eliminating both members of Demolition. Axe then confronted Fuji, accusing him of doing this on purpose. Fuji responded by poking Axe with his cane, reminding him who's the boss. But then, Smash would eventually get back to his feet and then help his partner in body slamming Fuji on the outside, thus turning both of them babyface. But then right afterwards, the Powers of Pain, the Warlord and the Barbarian, came out to help Fuji up, revealing that they were now aligned with him, turning the two heel after they first debuted in the WWF with Tito Santana as babyfaces. Although if they were aligned with Fuji, why didn't they prevent him from getting body slammed? Just a thought. And while the act of Demolition turning on Fuji is completely separate from the act of the Powers of Pain helping Fuji up, what makes this a true double turn is the reasoning behind it. Fuji claimed that together Demolition started getting a little bit disobedient during their run of dominance, and that the Powers of Pain, on the other hand, would be a very subservient tag team, and they would know their rightful place. Thus, it was the action of Fuji betraying Demolition that was both the signal that served as the exact moment that would be the reveal that the two teams had switched roles. But now let's look at a somewhat more recent example: Alberto Del Rio and Dolph Ziggler. Ziggler was a cocky heel champion who had won the belt by cashing in his Money in the Bank contract on babyface Alberto Del Rio. Unfortunately, after that, he was sidelined with a concussion for weeks. Upon Ziggler's comeback, Dolph faced Alberto Del Rio in a return bout. However, with Dolph having recovered from a concussion, Del Rio thought that it would be wise to target Dolph's head. Now, Ziggler's popularity had been growing, as the people just loved his arrogant rockstar persona, and they were also getting bored with Del Rio's flat babyface routine. As a result, Del Rio's repeated kicks to the head caused caused fans to sympathize with Ziggler, and Del Rio's aggression became viewed as him taking things too far. And by the end of that match, when Alberto Del Rio regained his title, the two men had switched places with the fans. Now, in case you were wondering, why is this so rare? Turns happen all the time, so shouldn't double turns happen all the time? And isn't this just a simple matter of having a babyface turn heel on a heel, or vice versa? Well, not exactly. When it comes to the rarity, to do a double turn correctly, it requires the right timing and the right psychology in order to pull off. The stars don't always align with one another. For example, if a heel is hated, and I mean truly hated, not kayfabe hated, then no one is going to care if someone turns on them. It takes a special kind of heel that is so good at what they do that they start getting over for it. And when one of these rare heels comes along, those are the perfect heels for a double turn. But that is only part of the equation. The other half, the harder half in my opinion, is if a babyface can go heel. Because if they're a babyface that we don't feel strongly enough to have an opinion about them to begin with, then we don't care if they turn bad. But if it's a babyface that we really like, then turning them heel won't be easy. Fans may just cheer them anyway. So as you can see, there's a very narrow window in which this can work. And while wrestling is filled with lackluster turns all the time, when doing a double turn, there's twice as much at stake. There's twice as much that can go wrong, and the mistakes get magnified because it's not just one push that hangs in the balance, but two. Although, fortunately, when done right, there's also twice the reward. But what do you think? What are some of your favorite double turns in all of wrestling history? Let me know down in the comments. And I also want to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters, such as Richard Lee. Thank you so much for your support. And if you want to become a supporter of this channel just like Richard, then go over to my Patreon page. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, Dave knows.